This is Michael Popok, and by the looks of things, it's time for Legal AF After Dark. You want to know what Legal AF stands for? Join us on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on this MeidasTouch YouTube channel. This week, we talked about the Manhattan District Attorney trial for election interference and business record fraud against Donald Trump starts next week. Despite the fact that Donald Trump has tried not once, not twice, but 3 times to get a stay from the appellate court, the intermediary appellate court in New York, and has failed. He's not getting this case tried or stayed. I'm sorry, he is getting it tried, but he'll keep trying. He'll keep trying, and we break it all down with a former prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office, my partner on Wednesdays, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo. Take a listen. Let's launch right into Manhattan DA. And I know you did a little corrective remediation with me, which is good, about some of the procedure that I talked about. So why don't you take it from the stay issues, and then we'll kind of, you and I'll morph into the case getting ready for trial issues.
So what's happening is, for the 10th time, Donald Trump's lawyers have been requesting that the trial be delayed. Think about it, 10 times, right? That's just incredible. They are absolutely so desperate to attempt to not have this case go that they are making every possible motion. They are appealing every possible motion, whether it's the gag order, whether it's recusal of the judge because of who his daughter is, whether it's the presidential immunity issue. And what they're trying to do is they ask first Judge Merchan, and then they appeal it, and they are trying to go up and up and up. They keep losing at every turn. But really what everybody is waiting for, or bracing for, is he going to try to go to the Supreme Court, which obviously leans very heavily toward Republican and towards the conservative majority. The question will be, will they stay the case? And the argument that I think he's setting us or himself up for is as follows, which is that in 10 days after my trial starts, presidential immunity is getting teed up to be argued at that time, right? It's right now they're filing motions, or actually their briefs to the Supreme Court, and the oral argument is scheduled for 10 days after the trial is starting April 15th. So it's April 25th, and that's on an expedited basis. And I've argued presidential immunity in this case, and it was denied. But since this very issue is teed up for the Supreme Court, why can't we just wait? And he's then going to, I think, morph into, the reason we can't wait is because there's a biased judge. Here are all the reasons the judge is biased. He issued a gag order against me. Then he expanded the gag order against me. And he also has a daughter who is a Democratic operative, et cetera. So all of the arguments he's going to weave potentially into one and argue to the Supreme Court for a stay and say, look, what's the rush? Why can't we wait a few more weeks or a month? The only reason is because they're trying to make me lose the election. So that, I think, is what he's doing. Ben pointed out, which I thought was a really good point, that I think it was on Monday when he issued his statement about abortion, that he actually, saying that he believes in leave it up to the states, and 15 weeks sounds okay, like you just talked about, Popok, that he named each of the Supreme Court justices that he appointed. Now, why would he do that? It felt, when I heard it, I was like, God, that feels very strange. It feels almost like he's kind of talking to them, like, remember who put you here. And it felt very weird. And when Ben pointed that out, I thought that could make a lot of sense. That's why he's doing it. He's teeing it up like, I'm coming and I expect you to perform for me. And so let's see. But there's only 2 work days left before the trial. So he doesn't have a lot of time if that is his play. But for the 10th time in a row, he's desperately, desperately trying not to go to trial. He does not want this trial. He does not want to face this jury, and he doesn't want to be held accountable. He just wants to delay. So that's where he is right now. And interestingly, I've been getting a lot of calls, and the reason we decided to do this Trump on Trial Legal AF special edition is I'm getting flooded and inundated with requests to speak about this case, mostly to explain, what does this mean? What does that mean? How many jurors are they going to pick? Do they have to be unanimous? How many challenges do they have each side, et cetera? Because I come from the Manhattan DA's office. I obviously worked there for 30 years, and I was the chief assistant DA under Cy Vance. I never worked for Alvin Bragg. And so I have insight that not everybody in the world has. And so that's why I think people are making a lot of requests. And Ben and I were talking about it and saying, I said, I really like to do this for MeidasTouch, and I'd like to provide this insight on a daily basis. And so that's hopefully what I will be able to do, and answer all the questions and sort of do the reveal codes for everybody about what everything means. And we can go from there if the trial actually starts. So jury selection is supposed to start Monday. It's going to go, I think, the whole week. And, the question about what kind of jurors they're looking for are, very, very tricky, right? The judge issued a questionnaire. One part of the questionnaire that I like to point out to everybody that the judge issued is one where he talked about the case in general, because the way jury selection is going to work starting Monday is he's going to call a group of people into the courtroom, and he's going to read them some preliminary instructions. And those preliminary instructions, he's then going to ask anybody if, based on these questions and these instructions, is there anybody who feels they can't sit for this case, or feels they can't be fair and impartial for this particular case? Or do you have a hardship that makes it so that you can't serve? Or are you not a resident of Manhattan? Or can you not hear? Things like that would actually prevent people from being a juror. And he's just going to excuse all of those jurors without questioning them further. Anyone who self-identifies that they can't serve. He's doing that to expedite things, because in New York State, a defendant has a right to be present at all of those, with all of those discussions. And most of the time, those types of discussions are done privately. And so the judge was talking about how difficult it would be to have all the parties and the Secret Service and Trump and everybody to have to go and talk to each individual juror. Let's just get rid of all the ones that are self-identified that they can't serve. And then we'll start with the questioning. And again, this is very standard and very routine, especially in a case like this. And what the judge said, and I thought this was really key, and I just want to point it out to everybody, because some people in the media talk about it as a hush money case, as the porn star case, as Stormy Daniels, right? That's how it's talked about in shorthand. The problem with talking about it like that is it really doesn't characterize what the case actually is about, or the gravity of the case. And the judge really gets it, because Alvin Bragg, when he indicted Donald Trump, filed a statement of facts. I think it was the same day or the next day. So it was over a year ago, March. And in it, he talked about it as an election interference case. But interestingly, again, the media has been saying, oh, it's a hush money case that's only recently been called a election interference case by Alvin Bragg. So again, I went back and I reread that statement of facts. No, and it's not recent. That's what it's been characterized as. It's the media who's been calling it that, which really diminishes the importance of it, right? Compared to the insurrection Jan 6 case, compared to the stealing our nuclear codes Mar-a-Lago case, and of course, Fani Willis is similar companion case to the Jan 6 case federally. This felt very not important, right? Why this case it's not a big deal. And there was a lot of people who talked about it very negatively. So I want to just go back to this case summary that Judge Juan Merchan issued this last week, saying, this is what I'm going to tell the jurors that this case is about, because he has to ask questions and explain things to him. He says, the defendant, Donald Trump, is charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. The allegations are, in substance, that Donald Trump falsified business records to conceal an agreement with others to unlawfully influence the 2016 presidential election. Okay? That's how the judge is characterizing this case. And the more I think about this case, Popok, and the more I really think about what this is about, the more I think, in some ways, this case is equally as serious, if not just as serious as his other cases, right? It doesn't sound like it when you hear about it because, of course, the other cases are so incredibly, shockingly serious, right? Stealing our nation's most coveted and must are secrets, right? Are the keys to the kingdom, and doesn't give them back and doesn't protect them and has them in bathrooms. I mean, it doesn't get more serious than that, right? It's just that is something that is just absolutely treasonous. And the same with the Jan 6 cases, right? Those cases were absolutely just stunning, right? With the people who lost lives and breaking into the Capitol, and the fact that he tried to get Mike Pence to not certify the election. But when you think about this case, okay, this particular case is a case where he only won by 80,000 votes in the swing states. And that's a stunningly small number. In 2016, he won by the slimmest margin. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, if this information had come out on the heels of the Access Hollywood tape, along with the suppressing the Karen McDougal story, the paying off the doorman story, and now this having an affair with a porn star story, would he have gotten those votes? Obviously, that calls for speculation, and we don't know. But what if the fact that he did this is the reason he won the 2016 election? And our democracy has forever changed, at least currently, as a result of that election. So I want to challenge anyone who says this is not an incredibly serious case, and that this case that's going forward starting next week is one of the most important cases of our lifetime.
All right, so I agree with that. Let's talk about the getting ready. I don't think the stay is going to happen. I think his 10 ways to Sunday is going to all fail. I don't think the appellate court at the full level of the 5 justices that'll be assigned to any of these appeals are going to stop the trial from happening. They may think that some of those issues need to be better addressed at the end of a trial, but they're not going to find it to be grounds for an interlocutory appeal. But it's not going to stop Donald Trump, as you said, with 2 business days remaining to try to get some sort of attention. The latest one is an argument that's being raised today with Judge Merchan about immunity and some people may be scratching their head. What immunity? I mean, he has no immunity for when he was running for office against Hillary Clinton prior to being elected president. This argument that, well, why don't we just wait to see what the Supreme Court does on the 25th of April and beyond about whether I have structural immunity or immunity from criminal prosecution as a former president for official acts. What does it have to do with the issues that are being presented in this election interference case that had to do with Donald Trump trying to interfere with his own being elected in his own way, in much the way that, we don't blow smoke or sunshine. I mean, Bill Clinton had a series of sexual misconduct issues that erupted. They used to call it the eruptions on the campaign trail when he was running for office, but it was a different time. It was the 90s. It wasn't social media, and a lot of those stories were made to go away, or the women were discredited, rightly or wrongly, and Bill Clinton got elected. But this was a horse of a different color, right? You've got, as you said, the Access Hollywood tape, hot mic moment from several years earlier, in which he admits to sexually assaulting women against their will, of course, and then trying to chalk it off to, well, I'm a celebrity and I get to get away with it. And yeah, I think you're right. I think when you have so few amount of people in the swing states, he lost, he won Pennsylvania by so little votes. That alone could have swung it. Although I'm starting to question some of the electorate and their continued support for Donald Trump, but certainly it should have been an issue or a fact that would have been important if it was known by the electorate. Meantime, the trial judge, in rejecting, as he is wont to do, all of these ridiculous last-minute motions, is ready to pick a trial, ready to pick a jury. It's going to be 12 members. There's going to be some alternates that are going to be selected as well. Has to be a unanimous jury. And there's a questionnaire, as you touched on, that's going to be used. They're not going to get to the heart of who's a Democrat, who's a Republican, but they are going to ask who knows the 3%ers, who knows Proud Boys, who knows QAnon, who's been to a Trump rally, who's been to an anti-Trump rally. They're going to get to it that way, people's sort of politics, but only if they can't find a group of fair-minded Manhattan people, Manhattan citizens, residents that can't be fair and impartial. Democrats can be fair and impartial. Republicans, the right ones, can be fair and impartial and independents and the like. And so, they'll find it. And look, the perfect juror for Donald Trump is like, I don't know, policemen, firemen, fire rescue, I don't know, people like that, I assume, based on some reporting, that's what his trial team is interested in. And the Manhattan DA wants, educated people who I'm sure they would like it to skew a little bit more female, but as long as they have educated people that are willing to listen to the evidence presented, I think the Manhattan DA is going to be fine ultimately with that. And then you've got this Alan Weisselberg issue, which we'll touch on here and then follow up on the other side of our sponsors. We got Alan Weisselberg, who, if he wasn't a twice convicted felon and now literally sitting at Rikers Island, would have been a good witness for the Manhattan DA if he could ever tell the truth, because his fingerprints are all over the books and records fraud of this election interference component. It's a two-step crime, right? And that's how it gets to be a Class C felony. It's a business record fraud, which is the class whatever, is a misdemeanor. But if you couple it with in order to obtain the objective of another crime, which is the election interference part, even if it's federal, in the way that the Manhattan DA has framed it, that ratchets it up and bootstraps it up to a felony, and then an E-class felony. And that's how we got to this. I know Donald Trump's calling it today like it's a hoax, the hoax trial, because he got a lot of mileage out of that with the Russia hoax. And he always likes to, use all that kind of vocabulary. Well, welcome back. That was Legal AF podcast, politics, law, the intersection. You can't make this stuff up. And if you're looking for a podcast with lawyers talking about things that they know what they're talking about, you've come to the right place. We don't blow smoke or sunshine on the MeidasTouch Network, not about the law, not in courtrooms where we practice regularly. Karen Friedman, Agnifilo there, former prosecutor, Manhattan DA, going to be doing a Trump on trial countdown with Ben Meiselas on a regular basis here at the MeidasTouch Network, while we do the midweek edition and the Saturday edition. If you know all about Legal AF, then we thank you for being part of our audience. If you caught our show this week, that was a repeat of one of the segments. Otherwise, take that clip. Help be our marketing department. We need it. Take it, send it off to friends and family, people in your life, and say, hey, that show Legal AF I like so much? Here's an example of it. Maybe they'll join our audience. And then we do hot takes like this one at the intersection of law and politics about every hour, only on the MeidasTouch Network. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.